Doneric McEachran, or Max McEachran, as he likes to be known as. He was a young Scottish forest ranger who was coming up here at that time to visit Elizabeth from time to time, make sure everything was running tickety-boo at the tea house and such. And, well, his visits would become a little more frequent, because they soon fell in love, and then eventually got married in a very secret ceremony. Secret, you may ask. I'm so glad you did, yes. Now, you might detect a little bit of an age difference between the two of them. I'm sure Elizabeth didn't want her son-in-law to find out that she had followed suit and married a gentleman 30 years younger than herself. Yes, which certainly explains the smile on her face in that picture, I'd say, compared to that one over there. Good for her. Now, once they got married, Mac ultimately purchased the park off of Edward in 1934, so Mac here became our fourth owner. Unfortunately for the couple, though, they bought the park during the time of the Great Depression, in the 30s there, so times were tough up here in Capilano for them, but Mac, being ahead of his time, decided to boost business, I guess you could say, by bringing in some culture into the park. And he was well acquainted with the local First Nations in this area, being a forest ranger and all, so he asked the local Squamish chief, that jolly gentleman there in the picture, Chief Matthias Joe Capilano, to come up here into the park to carve. And because of that, we have carried on that fine tradition to this very day. You'll see our Capilano big house right behind you. And we are now credited with the largest collection of privately owned West Coast First Nations totem poles in the world now. Whew, that's a mouthful to say. And you'll see a lot of those as we head on up into the park. But in the meantime, we do have to cap off our story further down this way. Follow me. Now, Mac eventually sold the park in the 40s to this gentleman right here. We don't have a giant jumbo picture of him, but here he is, Henri Aubeneau, a French restaurateur who came here and really didn't want a tourist attraction so much as just a big backyard with a bridge in it. So he fired all the employees, let the grass run tall. If someone wanted to come in and see the bridge, he'd gently stroll across the street from his house, open up the gate, say, have fun, and just wait for them to come back out. So, and of course, World War II was happening at that time, so not a lot of things were happening up here during that time under Henri's reign, until the 50s came swinging around, and this guy right here by the name of Ray Mitchell bought the park off of Henri in 1953. Ray kind of restored the park to its former glory. He rebuilt a brand new suspension bridge in 1956, since the old wire one was still swaying there since the early 30s, that is. And I did that in 56, and it's the one we have up until, well, we had up until about 4 years ago. Some of you might have heard we had a huge windstorm come up into Vancouver. If you've been down to Stanley Park, you might have seen it knocked a few trees down. Happened up here as well. We had a huge 46-ton Douglas fir tree fall during that windstorm and land, guess where?
On the bridge.
Right on top of our bridge, yes. Now, as a testament to that steel cable that Ray had installed, well, it snapped that tree in half like a twig, and the bridge stood strong, which is quite amazing. Woo! Unfortunately, yes. Woo! Absolutely, yes. Now, unfortunately, we did have a large section of that tree still resting on the bridge. Obviously, we've since removed it, and it now actually still resides on the canyon on the left-hand side of the bridge once you cross over to the west side. You can take a look and see just how big that tree really was. And they've actually made it kind of a wishing tree now. People have started tossing coins onto it, so go figure. There you go. Now, capping off our story, getting back to that, Ray in the 50s also hired his young daughter Nancy as the young ice cream lady, and then she climbed the corporate ladder and bought the park off of Daddy in 1983. So Nancy here is our current owner to this very day, and here's a more recent photograph of her right there. And she's made the park to what it currently is. She's added this lovely story center so we could tell this nifty story. The Capilano big house. She's hired strapping young lads such as myself to tour you fine folks throughout the park. Good for her. And also, we've got a brand new attraction on the other side of the park entitled Treetops Adventure. And what that is 7 more suspended bridges. Bet you didn't see this one coming. Up into the trees, connected from tree to shining tree, those big old Douglas firs, and putting you up to 100 feet into its canopy at one point. So pretty nifty things. You'll see that once you get to the other side. You have to cross that bridge to see it, though. Speaking of which, yes, the Catch-22. We're going to head up to Capilano before we hit that bridge and tell you some